When I went to Korea, I knew that my blackness would impact my experience to an extent, but I didn't expect someone to touch my hair without my consent. And unfortunately, sometimes that's just the reality of being black in a space that lacks a prominent black population. And I know there's a lot of videos out there that talks about racism in Korea, or videos that's showing Koreans rapping, singing the N-word, wearing box braids, dreads, and whatnot. I feel like there's a lot more to answering the questions, are Koreans racist? I feel like it's a lot much more layered and complex than the ways in which I've seen it articulated or explained on the internet. Honestly, I don't think anyone has given me an answer to this question. Obviously, yes, racism does exist in Korea, and I've experienced a form of racism in Korea, but I feel like there's a lot much more to this issue that has not been discussed yet, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, honestly. So if you're interested in this video and you want to learn more about my experience and my answer to this question, keep watching. So when I was in Korea, on my second day there, actually, I had a person touch my hair without asking. I had box braids in, and she like just came and like started tugging. Like I felt my head go back, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then I had to remind myself that I'm not in America, and I turned around and she was like, oh, you know, very pretty, da 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 da. And I'm just like, thank you so much. But like in that moment, I just like, I froze. I didn't know what to do, but then I had to also like recollect myself, like, wait, calm down, like what's actually happening before we just react. If I just put it plain and simple, it was uncomfortable for me. And I was the only black girl at the table, right, with my friends. I don't think they understood what just happened and how it impacted me. In my head, now thinking about it, I'm like, would a Korean go up to another Korean and touch their hair just cause? Like, would they? I don't think so. Sometimes I feel like there's certain experiences that come with being black in this world that are just so unique to us that not other racial identities and groups can like understand it. But anyways, also in Korea, I felt this like sort of like hyper visibility of my blackness, and I sometimes felt like I would be super like conscious and aware of how I came off, how I dressed, how I talked, which was a little bit exhausting. But like after I was there, after a couple of like weeks, I kind of like stopped doing that because it wasn't healthy. I also had like a lot of people stare at me. Some of them were just like, I guess in awe or like surprised. Like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what they were thinking. If we're to be honest, we don't know what people are thinking, but just a lot of stares and a lot of glares. And I was just like, okay, just a little bit uncomfortable, I guess. I did have one person that actually gave me the disgusting look when I looked at her one time. And it only happened when I was in the countryside of Korea. And like, honestly, I didn't take any offense to it because I was just like, I know I am harmless and I didn't mean to harm her or to bring her any discomfort. It's just that like, I made eye contact with her by accident and she was not okay with it, but I was just like, all right, like, cool. I also got turned away from a club twice. I mean, the first time I didn't actually want to go into the club. I was with a group of friends and some of them were like Korean Americans and whatnot. And she wanted to go into this club because it was her birthday. And when we approached the club, the bouncer, whoever, I was outside, said like in Korean that we were only accepting Koreans. And she was like, let's go. Maybe because I was prepared for it, that didn't get to me. I was just like, cool, there are certain clubs that don't allow foreigners. Not an issue for me. I was just like, burying me from going inside a club does not really impact my well-being or anything of sorts. So I was just like, cool, great. Next. And the other time was when I was in Busan, and he was really polite about it. He was just like, you know, just like no foreigners, and we just kept it pushing again. So to like wrap everything up, the racism that I experienced in Korea does not amount or compare to the racism that I experienced as a black woman living in America. Like in Korea, the racism was more of just like microaggressions, like being prejudiced against me. Again, touching my hair. I don't know if touching my hair is an act of racism, if that makes sense, but it's like, it's a form of discomfort that is caused by me being black and by me having braids. Like, and that's a very like interesting and like dynamic. And like honestly, not being able to go into certain clubs does not bother me. I wouldn't say it was because I'm a black woman. I would say because I was a foreigner, and those are the rules that Koreans have against foreigners. Cool, right? But like the type of racism I experienced in Korea does not put my physical existence in as a threat. Like I'm not a threat because I am black in Korea. I am not a threat. In opposed to America, you can wear a hoodie, you can be stopped by police. Racism is embedded in so many areas and places, institutions and whatnot in America, that me being black automatically makes me a target and can impact my physical and mental well-being. In comparison to Korea, I don't feel threatened by being black. I don't have to worry about someone shooting me because I am black. Like, does that make sense? Like, sure, I can not worry about, but sure, I can expect people to stare at me or to ask me questions about my hair or feel comfortable enough to touch my hair, and I'll get to that. But I don't feel a sense of unsafety in a historically homogenous country because the types of histories that exist in Korea in comparison to America is very different. So basically, the racism that I experienced in Korea is very like overt microaggression, prejudices, stereotypes. That is what exists in comparison to the systemic, covert, aggressive, invasive racism that exists in America. So honestly, I don't think that Koreans are intentionally racist or exhibit behaviors of racism. I honestly think it's ignorance with a combination of genuine curiosity and interest. If I'm being honest, I do think that there are a lot of Koreans that want to get to know foreigners. I do think that they have this genuine curiosity and interest to speak, to connect, and to build some sort of understanding. Obviously, it's not correct to say that all Koreans are racist. And a lot of things that I've been hearing on the internet or where I would watch videos where people are talking about racism in Korea, they'll be like, oh, Koreans live in their own bubble. Like they just, they're just so focused about like what's happening in Korea. And I'm just like, valuable point, right? But like, don't all Americans live in their own world? Don't we also are just so hyper aware of what's happening in this country, and also we tend to put our ways of living in superior or like on a like hierarchy basis on the top of how others live their life? Like, let's be for real. The only reason why we are interested in Korea or in Korean society and Korean culture is because we have taken the time to develop interest in the country, in its culture, through its cultural industry, through K-pop, through K-drama, right? Or through our own just like interest. And even when K-pop idols come to America, they experience racism. But I'm pretty sure Stray Kids was experiencing some sort of racism on the Met Gala red carpet, and the paparazzis or whoever were being just like very openly racist towards these men. And that's the thing that I realized, is that even in a worldly, diverse, colorful country as America, there are still people in this country that don't know how to interact with people of different racial identities and nationalities. They don't have the same knowledge, awareness, cultural sensitivities, nothing. And you do, or we do, or you're trying to. So basically what I'm saying is not everyone in this world has developed the same cultural awareness to interact with people of different backgrounds, cultures, and identities. Even people in a diverse country like America. Now, if we compare America diverse to Korea, historically homogenous, there are people in a diverse country that are still racist. Yet we are still a little bit shocked that there are people in a historically homogenous country that also exhibit forms of racism. The history of the US has shaped interactions, power dynamics, and sensitivities around race. The US history is ingrained with slavery, racial segregation, and systemic racism targeting Black individuals. Korea doesn't have the same history of systemic racism targeting Black African Americans or just like Black people in general. Korea has been a historically homogenous country, and I will keep saying it because it really explains their lack of understanding around cultural sensitivities and racial awareness. But I'm pretty sure Korea was a very poor country. This is the most attention, I think, in history Korea has received because of the Hallyu wave and because of like a bunch of other things, right? Like Korea was a poor country. It was colonized by Japan and experienced a form of slavery by Japan. Also, the country has gone through a lot to get to where it is today. And I think that what's very unique is that like the country was able to do that like through, I want to say, I guess the sacrifices that Koreans made in society to get to where their country is today. I think it's a very like personal, intimate, and like sacred history that exists for that country specifically. So taking that into consideration, Korea and its citizens never really had a motivator or a need to develop racial awareness and cultural sensitivities around Blackness or other racial groups. That's why I don't think all Koreans are racist or intentionally racist. Taking into consideration the history of the country and the ways in which it doesn't have the same history of systemic and race-based oppression targeting Black individuals in its society. Therefore, most Koreans don't understand the nuances of racial sensitivities. Personally, I expect a Korean American to understand racial sensitivities as opposed to a Korean native, because a Korean American is born in the society of America, and because racism is ingrained in the US national consciousness, they at some point had to learn that saying the N-word or doing certain things, even towards other racial groups, are insensitive. And opposed to a Korean native who is only exposed to people who look like them, probably the same mindset or whatever, they don't have that sort of knowledge and foundation to understand what's wrong with saying the N-word, for example. There's a lot of changes that's been happening in Korean society. Like I mentioned earlier, due to the Hallyu wave, globalization, the decline of the Korean population, and immigration, there's been an influx of foreigners living, traveling, working, and honestly just like staying in Korea. Therefore, Koreans are being exposed to people of different racial, cultural, nationality, and ethnic backgrounds. And I would argue that Koreans are actively in real time learning how to acclimate to this like fast and rapid change that's happened in their society. Honestly, this may take years for Koreans and foreigners learn how to coexist in a space that's been historically Korean. This isn't a Korean problem, and this isn't like only a foreigner problem. Like, it's something that needs to be addressed and worked on in order to live harmoniously, in order to understand each other, because change is inevitable, right? Even if it's change that you necessarily never asked for, but it's happening anyways, right? And I feel like a lot of things, I guess Koreans didn't ask for, are like happening in its society. And I think that like there's some Koreans that are ready for it, probably there's some Koreans that hate it, there's some Koreans that probably feel indifferent about it, right? But it's like these changes are happening. How can we as human beings, how can we make this smooth, right? And honestly, there's always going to be challenges with changes. There's always going to be resistance with changes. But it's like, how can we go about this with love, with empathy, with kindness, with connection? And I think this change is demonstrating the need for greater understanding around racial sensitivities. Koreans don't have this ingrained understanding around sensitivities around Black hair or language or other cultural aspects that have been developed in the US because of its deep history. And honestly, Korea is not an anomaly. In countries without a significant history of Black presence and the associated experiences of racial discrimination, you're more likely to encounter a different level of understanding and sensitivity around Blackness compared to places like the US, where Americans have a deep knowledge around the history and why certain things are considered inappropriate around certain racial groups like Black people. Even with this deep ingrained knowing, we still have conversations around the N-word. We still have conversations around mass incarceration. We still have conversations around police brutality, around Black women, natural hair in workspaces, and having the need to have a law to protect Black women. We have so many laws, laws that are some that are being taken away around protecting Black people, or Black individuals, or Black Americans. These conversations matter because I think it's super important to take the time to have these hard conversations, to understand where people are coming from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, nationalities, ethnic backgrounds, to understand that our differences aren't things that are meant to push us away, aren't things that meant to like ostracize us or feel like we can't have some ground of like understanding and connection. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We live in a black and white world, right? If you're not this, you're that. And there's like no in between. And like, I'm gonna put this pen down because I'm just talking with my hands. Like, I'm making this video because I love to see people of different communities come together. They come together, they learn, they share, they connect. It builds kindness, it builds empathy, it builds understanding. I guess it really highlights humanity, humility. It grounds us in a world of differences, right? That's the thing. When you go to a different country, I think that it's so beautiful to learn about other ways of living outside of your own native country, to see the beauty and the essence of this earth and the people that exist on this earth. Our differences are not weaknesses or things to be categorized, but things that should be honored and celebrated and like learned from, right? Like we learn from each other. I think that's the beauty of like intercultural awareness and developing the ability to speak to people and communicate with people of different backgrounds. I don't know, I feel like it just makes you a better human being. If I'm being honest, I really think it does. And I think that's the impact that desire has had on me. And that's why to this day, I still love Korea. I still love the culture, the society, and I want to learn more. But I feel like it takes two. With intercultural communication, with building that empathy, with building that understanding, it takes mutual effort, mutual vulnerability, mutual respect, collaborative effort to build understanding of different cultures, of different backgrounds, to come together to create something massive. And honestly, that's what I think K-pop is, okay? And now I want to talk a little bit why I have a bone to pick with the K-pop industry. Okay, I have a love and hate relationship with the K-pop industry. I struggle between whether K-pop is dabbling in cultural appropriation or cultural appreciation. I go back and forth between the two every single time. And I feel like the K-rap and I guess the like hip-hop industry, that's its own thing, right? But we all know that Black African-American culture, aesthetic, sound, style has laid the foundation for success for K-pop. That's where the first few people who started the K-pop industry, that's where their inspiration came from. And also I think it's important to, again, bring a little bit history in again, where the US was occupying South Korea during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. And they were there for, I think, about like 3 years, right? And I honestly feel like, or I think it's known, that the presence of the US impacted K-pop, but I also feel like the presence of the US might have also impacted Koreans' understanding around blackness and whiteness and the dichotomy between the both and which one is higher than the other, you know, if that makes sense. During the time that they were there, I feel like Koreans might have learned from its oppressors. I don't know if Americans oppressed Koreans. They probably did. Let's be honest, y'all. They probably did. There are probably things that happened during that time where Koreans were being oppressed by Americans. And that like Western superiority, American superiority complex comes in, you know, we're the saviors, you know, like we're here to save your country, like you need us type stuff, right? Which obviously is not true. I feel like that's where they learn. They learn from their oppressors. They learn the understandings and the power dynamics of whiteness and blackness and how it operates. Whiteness is at the core of many cultures in this world, in African culture, in Asian culture, in American, like it exists everywhere in this world. As K-pop evolves, I feel like the influence of Black African American culture gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Yes, like it was very strong like back then, like way back. But like now I feel like it's getting stronger. And now I feel like they're also like tying in like African stuff, like African beats, Afro beats, right? So we have the twerking that came out of nowhere. And I don't know how I feel about that yet, right? I know twerking is a dance, right? Twerking is twerking, but twerking is coming from African American culture, right? We have the baby here. We have the braids. Sometimes we have the box braids. We have the aesthetics, the hip hop, the hip hop style. We have the dances, right? There's we see it, and even Tyla, the obsession with Tyla, and her little dance with her what she doing her thing. We see the power and how just sensational Black people are. Whether you're from Africa, or whether you're Black African American, even when I was listening to a song that was by in Hyphen, and I think it was Pass the Mic. When that drill beat came on, y'all, I was like, what is happening? I was shocked. I was like, drill and K-pop? I just don't know how I feel. I just don't know. I think I feel a little bit iffy about it because of the ways in which I know the reality of Korean society right now, and also I know how people love to take inspiration from Black culture, but then when time comes to support effort or issues around Black people despair. And I just want to say, the K-pop industry is not different from the American industry. That this is a problem that still exists in the American music industry. But also, some American artists have also appropriated Asian culture, Chinese culture, Japanese culture, in ways that are inappropriate and similar to Black appropriation, right? No industry has done these things perfectly. Personally, I loved when I saw that BTS did the Hustle American Life thing, where they went to, I think, Cali or the West Coast to learn about the history of rap, because rap played such a huge inspiration and validation to their success when they first debuted. Even though there were certain aspects of the American Hustle life that I didn't like, and I felt perpetuated Black stereotypical things, the purpose and intent was what's matter, right? That was a start, and that's the only thing I've seen so far that one K-pop idol group has done. And one person also that I feel is a good example of setting the standard of how you should always show appreciation to Black culture when you're drawing inspiration from it all the time is someone like J-Hope. J-Hope is always paying homage to Black African American culture. This man always takes the time to acknowledge how Black African American culture is something that he draws inspiration from. It's something that exists in his career that has made him successful, right? I think a lot of people should be looking at J-Hope as an example. Personally, I feel this is my opinion, but I feel K-pop is now global. K-pop does not exist within the continent of Asia only anymore. That is no longer a thing. It used to years back, but now it's global. And now when you are global, I feel you have the responsibility to develop cultural awareness and cultural sensitivities around different racial groups and identities, especially from a culture that you're drawing inspiration from. Therefore, I expect K-pop idols to know how to communicate, interact, and engage with people of different cultural backgrounds, because that is what K-pop is. K-pop is global. Not only is it global, but it's also hybrid, right? You are using elements, sounds, styles of cultures from all around the globe, right? K-pop is Korean, but it's also not in a way, right? Because it's Korean. There's aspects of K-pop that makes it very unique, right? That makes it K-pop. There's something so special about K-pop, and it makes it so unique that you know when it's K-pop, right? Because of how its formula and its sound and its hybridity. I feel the hybridity of K-pop is what makes it so special. And the hybridity is what I'm talking about. It draws inspiration from different cultures, different sounds, different music, different elements. Anyways, I think I was saying that I expect K-pop idols, as your duty as a global star. And I'm not only saying that this is a duty of K-pop idols only. I'm saying this is a duty of any star, right? Or any industry. When your reach is global, when your reach is international, outside of your country, I feel it is your duty to take the time to learn how to speak and interact with people of different cultural backgrounds, to take the time and learn how the ways in which you're crafting an album or whatever you're doing, however much your career and what you're doing, your platform stems or draws inspiration from something or from a culture, you take the time to understand the significance that has for that specific group or whatever you're drawing inspiration from. I think that is just like common decency. And again, I'm not saying this is something that K-pop idols are, like, that is unique to the K-pop industry. It's also existing within the American industry, right? It happens. But I honestly do not expect native Korean who hasn't interacted with people of different racial backgrounds, who hasn't stepped outside of Korea or whatever, to act and behave in the same ways in which a K-pop idol would do, or have the same cultural awareness and racial sensitivities, or our understanding of racial sensitivities in the way that they should, because that is the type of reach and power K-pop has now. Hopefully this makes sense. Like, hopefully this is making sense to y'all, but this, honestly, it's just like my opinion. When artists go to different countries, when they visit people, it's like, it's no longer about you in a sense. Like, yes, it's about you, but like, you're also making the effort to build connection and to show that you took the time or care to show the love back, to give that love back. This is the thing that I realized about K-pop. As much as K-pop makes Korea looks super diverse, like, honestly, I feel like K-pop makes Korea look like New York, like the mixing pot, the melting pot of like people of all backgrounds, which I do feel like Korea is like gradually getting there. Like, I know Korea has a huge African population. I know that people of all backgrounds are flooding into South Korea right now. But I low-key feel like it gives this false impression that everyone, like every Korean is on the same, like not same level, but like people are open. Like I feel like it gives this false impression that every Korean is open to this change. That Korea is this like super integrated, I'm not saying it's segregated. Korea is not at a level of hybridity, I guess, or like, well, I don't know how to say it, or like openness to diversity, inclusivity yet, in the ways in which it is portrayed in K-pop, if that makes sense. I feel like when you listen to K-pop, you hear the Afrobeats, you hear the drill, you hear like sometimes Latin American influence, like you hear so much of this like mixture of differences that you would also think it exists within Korean society and culture. That's what I'm saying. But that's not true. Right? That's not true. And I'm not saying that Koreans can't get there, like Korean society can get there. I think that it will, but I think it would take time. It will take a couple of years for Korean citizens, for Korean society, both the foreigners and native Koreans, to adjust to this change, because this country has been constantly going through change for over, like, I guess a couple of years, ever since its cultural like industries, like its cultural export industries have like blown up. The changes have been happening like fire, right? Honestly, we don't even know how Koreans really feel about this change. How do they feel about these like rapid changes that are happening in its society? Like, how does these different generations, like from the elderly to like the middle-aged people to the young people, like how do they feel about all of these changes that are happening in a society? We don't know, right? Like, and we're coming there with our own agendas and intent and purpose. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to take a space in a different country. If a native Korean wanted to move to America, they have all right to do so. And vice versa, if American or a French person or an Australian, whatever, wanted to move to Korea, like we have, well, I think sometimes most countries have the freedom to do so, but it's like we all deserve to take up spaces outside of our own native homes. I feel like there are K-pop dramas that do touch on this change and the challenges that it's presented in Korean society, like Itaewon Class. Like, I loved it because they had this black character there. Even though he was born in the country, he speaks the language and he has a Korean dad. The Koreans in the show still didn't accept him because he still wasn't Korean enough. I do love that they touched on the issues that are happening within its society because it's important. It's kind of like setting this narrative of like creating openness, like open-mindedness to accept people that fit outside of what Koreans have deemed Korean, or like to accept the evolution of where Korean is going. I would argue. To end this video, I just want to say, like, again, I'm not giving anyone a free pass to cause harm, to cause discomfort, to make people uncomfortable. I'm just saying that the answer to the question, are Koreans racist, or does racism exist in Korea? It's much more complex and nuanced than just a yes or no, and it's no one's job to sit there and be the spokesperson for a whole racial group and whole racial identity. There are people with my identity, outside my identity, who have different opinions and thoughts on this. There are some people who are not bothered by the things that I've mentioned in this video, right? Everyone has their own perspective. Black people are not a monolith, right? Korean people are not a monolith. Every Korean, every human being, every Black person has their own take and perspective on these issues. Or I should say, like, these challenges. I don't like to say it's an issue, but like these challenges, these are real life societal challenges. If I'm being honest, y'all, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm asking the tough questions. I'm doing the thinking, the hard thinking. These conversations are super important, especially because I'm a consumer of Korean culture, and I love to consume what the nation produces. I just feel like I have the ability to communicate and to foster empathy and understanding through my perspectives and through my story. It is honestly to share, to create dialogue, to create more conversation around topics like this. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn the notification bell on if you really like this video. I guess this is kind of like a video essay, but like this is really just me thinking out loud and sharing my ideas with you all. But I love digging deep between the Western world and Korean culture and society. If that interests you, then definitely stay tuned for more. Bye!